Hey, I'm Josh and you're watching the Prolo Patient. If you're new to the channel, I've been suffering with craniocervical instability for about the last 2 years or so. Today's video will be about my signs and symptoms of CCI. I'm going to list them in the order in which I remember them starting first. Dealing with my craniocervical instability symptoms, traditional doctors and traditional medicine were simply baffled by what was going on, and they offered no solutions. So I'll get into my list of symptoms. The first thing that I noticed was my trap muscles and rhomboids were always inflamed, and this goes back to over 2 years ago. My muscles were extremely inflamed in my shoulders. I was constantly in pain from all the knots and inflammation in my muscles, in my back. I would get headaches almost daily. I attributed these headaches to the high temperatures in the summers in Florida, but hindsight's 2020, they were most likely caused by my craniocervical instability, which would hinder the flow of blood in my jugular and carotid artery in my neck. The hypermobility from craniocervical instability would affect the blood flow to my brain, causing high blood pressure in my brain, causing headaches and vision problems and eye pain. Another thing that I noticed was some intense brain fog. The amount and the smell of my sweat changed. I would sweat all the time, profusely. Also, dealing with this, going back at least a year, my neck always felt like it needed to pop. It was just always uncomfortable. I always felt like it needed to be adjusted or would need to be popped. And if you've watched my video about the mission of this channel, or my welcome to the channel video, you'll remember me talking about the night in which my life really changed. And all of these symptoms moving forward in this video will be post that night. If you remember me talking about that night, you remember me talking about how I was extremely short of breath and was experiencing tachycardia. All that persisted up until I started getting Prolotherapy. I would do the slightest movement and my beats per minute would be skyrocketing just from the smallest of things. Also, the shortness of breath was very extreme, and it lasted a full 8 months until I started to get Prolotherapy. I was not just a little short of breath, it was extreme. Especially at nighttime, it would get so extreme that I would really feel like I might die. Moving forward dealing with this, as time progressed, the lightheadedness and dizziness got worse and worse. I was so dizzy, I couldn't walk from one end of my house to the other. It was very extreme. I had to get my wife to help me do everything. And in dealing with this, there were times where I would have extreme muscle pain, muscle paralysis. I would wake up and both of my arms, sometimes even both my legs would be numb. I wouldn't be able to move. I would have extreme tremors where I would just violently shake like I was having a seizure. They were really scary. The symptoms to this, like I mentioned earlier, were very extreme. Going back to the vision problems, I would have double vision, triple vision. Most of the time, it would take me 20 to 30 seconds looking at something in order for my eyes to adjust. Also, I would have extreme temperature fluctuations. I would go from being extremely hot, where I was taking my shirt off and just wanting to sit by a fan, to 20 minutes later, I'd be in a heated blanket where I would be shivering. Extreme noise and light sensitivity to where I couldn't tolerate any amount of noise. I would spend most of my life for months in isolation because I couldn't even handle somebody popping or clicking a bottle of water. It would just send me over the edge. The light sensitivity was so extreme that I couldn't tolerate a small dim lamp. I wore a blindfold during the day and would just sit in a recliner with a blindfold on for many weeks until I got Prolotherapy. Also, along with that, I experienced eustachian tube dysfunction. I had extreme popping and clicking in my ears whenever I would chew food or swallow. After a few months of dealing with this, I went completely deaf in this left ear for about 3 months. Could not hear anything out of it. It was very muffled in the right ear. It was really anxiety producing to go deaf amongst all these other symptoms. I also experienced a lot of pressure in my sinuses. That was one of the earlier symptoms, was a lot of pressure in my sinuses. Accompanied with the eustachian tube dysfunction, I had so much sinus pressure and it would just hurt my teeth, and it was really, really horrible. One of the biggest things was the pulsatile tinnitus and the ringing in my ears. That lasted for about 4 years. I had slight ringing in the ear that started 4 years ago, and then it developed, getting louder and louder and louder. Then the pulsatile tinnitus started, the whooshing in the ear. I was absolutely amazed that my first prolotherapy that I had to my cervical spine, from C2 to T2, that pulsatile tinnitus completely disappeared. I still had some slight ringing, but the whoosh, 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 you know what I'm talking about if you've ever experienced pulsatile tinnitus. It is absolutely horrible. So I thought then, if that's the only benefit I ever get from prolotherapy, it was so worth it. But dealing with all these horrible symptoms, like I spoke about in my Welcome to the Channel video, when I went to traditional medicine doctors, they were just lost. I remember I went to the ENT and they told me to go to a neurologist. I went to a neurologist. They sent me to neurosurgery. Neurosurgery sent me back to a neurologist. Neurologist said, hey, we think you should go back to the ENT. They were just ping-ponging me around. They didn't know what was going on. They didn't know how to help. If it weren't for prolotherapy and regenerative medicine, I would still be suffering with all these horrible symptoms. I thank God for regenerative medicine, and I would highly encourage you, if you're dealing with any strange symptoms, it could be craniocervical instability, and prolotherapy very well might change your life as well. Thank you for watching. Please like, comment, and subscribe if this video helped you or was informative to you. It helps out the channel with the algorithms and make all the robots happy. But thank you so much for watching. May God bless you, and we'll see you again soon.